pleased to announce that the NACAC Championships will be hosted in Grand Bahama this year. That's the regional international competition that's going to be held here. And the championships will see some 500 athletes, coaches, and officials head to Freeport for the event. The three-day event is good news for local athletes and the economy of that island. Prime Minister Davis remains committed to supporting the youth of this nation and our athletes, particularly through sports. Also, Prime Minister Davis met with U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere Affairs, Brian Nichols, earlier this week. At the courtesy call, the pair discussed their views of democracy, peace, and security. With the upcoming Summit of Americas convening next month, Prime Minister Davis and U.S. Assistant Secretary Nichols spoke about the importance of the event as a push for global climate change, resilience, and energy security. Officials at the United States Embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Bahamas were also in attendance at the courtesy call. He also brought a message looking forward to the Bahamas' intervention at the Summit of the Americas, particularly on regional discussions like climate change and also cryptocurrency and a number of other areas the Bahamas is leading on. Any other questions that you may want to have for the administration that I can take before we wrap up this afternoon? That is so wonderful. Carl, I think you had a question. No, I saw you giving me that look like I had a question. Yes.
As a taxpayer,
I
am really perturbed that $53 million could just simply disappear and nobody's being held accountable.
It's a concern. Prime Minister Davis would have said, this is why he's been speaking about it, perhaps much to the annoyance of people who've been hearing and not wanting him to talk about it in Parliament. He said this is why he has presented the audit report, he has talked about it, because he believes the Bahamian people deserves an answer as to how their money was spent. Those, as we say again, those records should be on file for any administration, the previous administration, the present administration. Those records should be on file, detailed, with accounts of how the money was spent, who it was spent to, what amount of the money was spent, and so forth. Prime Minister Davis has said in coming to office, there were no clear records on how this money was spent, which is why the audit report was convened, to be able to determine answers. And in that report, the audit report, as you have been made public, will say their concerns as well as far as what they were able to gain, those who were able to submit information as to what they did with the money, and those who didn't. It is still an outstanding concern as to the money. And that is why it has baffled us that the questions have been coming to the administration about why are you going after X, Y, Z, why are you doing this, rather than why aren't people accounting for the money they were given. And I said it last week and I repeat it again. Every week we keep asking the Davis administration to give an account for monies it's spending, but we don't put that same kind of measure of accountability to people who had to entrust the people's money. And I would hope that my colleagues would take up the challenge to investigate it and to ask questions. And instead of doing other things, dancing around it, ask people, well, you were in charge of the program. You were part of the program. What did you do with the money that was given to you? How much money was given to you? It's a public program, so it's not a private discussion. You should be able, as a journalist, to go to any of the people who benefited from the program as far as being contracted and ask them, how much were you given? How much did you spend? Who were the vendors you spent it with? It's not a private matter, it's the people's funds. And they should be able to answer you publicly on that. Government continues to be baffled by it as well. But it's something that government is not reneging on or going back on. We continue to investigate until we get some answers from the Bahamian people. We will continue to pursue it. Any other questions?
$4 million. Financial officers, can you just make sense of what would really happen with regards to union is saying that they're asking Minister Grohl to retract her statements, but according to her, there was an audit report. This financial officers having to pay themselves $4 million. What is the government's position on that?
Again, I always try to tell people to understand. Sometimes we shoot the spokesperson rather than the information, right? And if an audit report is recounting something and saying what happens, the minister is just regurgitating exactly what the audit report says. And so the question should be, what has happened in the process? right? And people have gone after the minister, but she's accounting what has been in the audit report. We're trying to get to the bottom of it as well ourselves. And I think what's important here is, while we're doing it, of course, respecting the rights of every civil servant and ensuring that people are treated with respect, which is what the Davis administration aims to always do in investigating matters. And we're trying to understand the whole picture as to what took place. I think what is key to this is, the important thing to understand is, and the officers said it themselves, oh, we can't pay ourselves and all that stuff. Somebody to authorize it. It was done in the previous administration, and there were some senior people who are no longer in office, who may have retired and who may have done other things, moved on, who obviously would have assisted and participated in carrying out what may have been done by cabinet. And so that's why we're tracking to see what transpired, and at the end of the day, how to fix it, without putting blame on people who are working today, or without saying the government lied. It's just to try and fix it. And hopefully we can come back next week, because we're working on the matter, and be able to say it was fixed or addressed, and here's what really transpired. But I think at the end of the day, we have to put the blame at the feet of where it originated from, and why it was not executed properly at the end of the day. And that's what we're trying to do.
So you don't think it was rather premature to make that announcement, considering this tracking has not been done as yet?
The minister has information, and let me say, because I know it was said by a union leader that she's in over her head, and she's not. She's quite skilled at what she's doing, and she's been quite effective at what she's doing. In the 8 months that she's been in office, she has gotten people regulated, and monies are overdue, and she's gotten things sorted out that has been sitting on shelves for years. Does that look like somebody who's in over their head? She's working. She's working hard, and her passion is for the people. She's not new to the public service. She's worked in that ministry before. She understands quite well how it should work. And so I push back on that statement that she's in over her head. She's not. She's quite capable. She's quite able, and if she's made statements, if you understand the minister, she's quite able to stand behind what she does. And I'm gonna get into who's right, who's wrong, who's offended, who's not, who needs an apology. She's about fixing the problem and addressing the problem. And the administration wants to make sure it's addressed. But the pushback I will give is on describing her as being in over her head. She's quite capable and quite competent. And the main people who have received her efforts, and the people who work under her in getting them sorted out, will agree that they're very grateful. And I don't want to take anything away from what she's doing because of a matter that's before in public domain right now, because she's working assiduously hard, and she wants fairness. And I think that should count for something as a minister of state, that she's working extremely hard. I was a member of unions before, so I understand how union leaders work and go. And sometimes things are said because you want to ensure that the people you serve as president for believe you are working and working hard. But sometimes we say things to the detriment of us as nation builders. She's working hard, and the matter will be resolved. Any other questions? Okay, so that concludes our press briefing for today. We don't have any vendors for you today.